Good afternoon, everybody. The UK clearly now faces a period of political uncertainty following yesterday's general election. Some things, however, are already very clear. The Conservatives have lost their majority, and the Prime Minister has lost all authority and credibility. In Scotland, the SNP won this election. We have more seats than all of the other parties combined. And I want today to thank all those who have once again placed their trust in the SNP. We will endeavour every single day to repay that trust. As we said throughout this campaign, SNP MPs will be strong voices for Scotland, standing up for our country's interests and working to make Scotland the very best country it can be. However, it is an inescapable fact that we also suffered some bitterly disappointing losses last night. I want to pay tribute to all of the SNP candidates who campaigned so hard but who won't be returning to Westminster. In particular, I want to pay tribute to Angus Robertson, a politician and parliamentarian of immense stature, who week after week held the Prime Minister to account, providing the scrutiny that the official opposition in the House of Commons failed to do. And I want to also make particular mention of Alex Salmond, my friend and mentor for almost 30 years, and without a shadow of a doubt, the giant of modern Scottish politics, someone who has devoted his life to serving this country. Both Angus and Alec and all of the other defeated SNP candidates still have so much to offer to public life, and I very much look forward to their continuing contributions. In 2015, the SNP achieved an exceptional, perhaps once in a century result. Traditionally in Westminster elections, the SNP is squeezed by the main UK parties. Indeed, in this campaign, we have seen the return of a dominant two-party system in England. This makes the SNP's achievement of winning a clear majority of seats in Scotland all the more remarkable. However, as we do after all elections, we will reflect on these results, we will listen to voters, and we will consider very carefully the best way forward for Scotland, a way forward that is in the interests of all of Scotland. And I will take the opportunity of saying more on that front in the days to come. The SNP will also seek to play our full part in finding the right way forward for all of the UK. The SNP fought this election, warning against the consequences of continued Tory government. The Tories, if given the chance, will hit living standards, widen inequality and force many, many more children into poverty. We will now work with others to do everything we can to prevent that from happening and to bring an end to the austerity that voters, the length and breadth of the UK, are no longer prepared to accept. And we will work with others, if it is at all possible, to keep the Tories out of government. We have always said that we would work in alliance with others to promote progressive policies to build a fairer country. We stand ready to play our part in that alliance. And it is needed now more than ever. The damage the Tories have done to the stability and the reputation of the UK cannot be overstated. In less than a year, they have caused chaos on an industrial scale. They recklessly forced through an EU referendum. They then embarked on a disastrous Brexit strategy, deciding to remove Scotland and the UK from the single market with no idea and no plan for what would come next. And they then called an election, knowing that the result would be declared just 11 days, less than 2 weeks before the most important negotiations in the UK's modern history were due to start. They were so arrogant that they thought they could do anything and simply get away with it. And now they're planning to cobble together an unstable administration, causing yet more damaging uncertainty. All of this, because they have consistently put the interests of the Tory party ahead of the interests of the country. And what is perhaps most breathtaking of all, this is a party that has the temerity to accuse others of causing division and uncertainty. It can't go on. Instead, there must now be an attempt to find consensus and to bring people together. Last night has shown that the reckless Tory pursuit of a hard Brexit must be abandoned. The clock on the Article 50 negotiations is ticking. It is no longer acceptable to proceed without a coherent plan. So I'm appealing to MPs from all parties to join together to keep the UK and Scotland in the European single market. By doing so, we can protect jobs, preserve our relationship with Europe, and bring some order to these negotiations. Finally, let me say this directly to the people of Scotland. In the coming weeks and months ahead, the Scottish Government will continue to provide the stable, effective government that our country needs. Amongst our other priorities, we will carry on with our reforms to education, support our NHS to meet the challenges of rising demand, and take the next steps in building a new social security system with dignity at its heart. As First Minister, it is my job and my duty to govern in the interests of everybody in Scotland. I know that in these times that is more important than ever, and it is exactly what I and my government will work to deliver. I'll now take just a couple of questions. Sarah.
Do you accept this result means there will not be a second referendum on independence anytime soon?
Well, I've said that I'm going to reflect carefully on the result, and I'm going to take some time to do that. Like all politicians, I've now gone 36 or more hours without sleep. I don't think these are the conditions to rush to judgments or to decisions. But as I said in my remarks, I will consider carefully the outcome, listen to what voters were saying. Undoubtedly, the issue of an independence referendum was a factor in this election result. But I think there were other factors in this election result as well. So I will reflect on that and come to considered judgments. And as I say, I'll say more about that in the days to come. Colin.
Has this weakened your case for another independence referendum, though?
Look,
you said at the start that you thought this would bolster it.
Well, look, our manifesto was clear, but I'm not going to go further than what I've said today at this point for the reasons I've set out to Sarah. But I will say more about this in the days to come. I think there were a number of factors at play in this election, certainly Brexit and the issue of independence. Clearly, in the last few days of this campaign, we saw a surge towards Jeremy Corbyn, which we saw in parts of Scotland as well as across the rest of the UK. We've also seen tactical voting at play in parts of Scotland. So there are a number of factors, and I will take time to reflect on all of these. But I'm very mindful at this time, not just because of the outcome in Scotland, where I would take the opportunity to remind people that the SNP won this election, but because of the outcome across the UK, I suspect there is even more than was the case before this election was called, a desire to see politicians try to bring people together, to bridge divides and to find a way forward that is rooted in consensus. I recognise my responsibility as First Minister to play my part in doing that, and that will be very much at the forefront of my mind in the days ahead. Peter.
First Minister,
I'll come to you, James.
Just specifically, you said you're not going to say more than you said in your statement. In your statement, you said you would listen to the voters and consider your position. Now, the voters have voted by a majority in Scotland for parties that support the union. Doesn't that tell you that you need to take this proposal off the table for the entire lifetime of the Scottish Parliament?
Peter, I will say more when I've properly reflected on this. And, you know, I think it is important, and I know this is frustrating for journalists, and I appreciate that, but I do think it is important for politicians, particularly in the immediate week of an election, just to take a pause and to consider. You know, what you've said to me may well be an interpretation with some degree of force behind it. Equally, I strongly suspect there were independence supporters amongst those who voted for Jeremy Corbyn yesterday. So I simply say that to, I guess, underline the fact that rushing to overly simplistic judgments too quickly is not the right thing to do. But we will consider, as I've said a number of times now, carefully the way ahead. James.
First Minister, thanks very much for taking my question. The last time there was a media gathering like this in this room, you said that there would be an independence referendum. You set out a preferred timetable. When you look at the share, the percentage share of the vote last night, do you accept now that that was a tactical error that has killed a second independence referendum stone dead?
Look, I accept that independence and an independence referendum was a factor in yesterday's election. I think that would have been the case had I taken a different decision a few weeks ago. So, you know, we cannot escape the presence of the constitutional question in Scottish politics, even if we wanted to. So that, I think, is the case. I also, as I've said in response to others, I think there were other factors at play in the election yesterday as well, and we will take time to consider them fully. No, I'm not going further than what I have today for the reasons that I have set out, but I will fully consider this and come to more conclusions in the fullness of time. Thank you all very much.